Hello, hello. Welcome to the Possible Perseverance podcast with your host, Ellie A. I am so excited to remind you today that perseverance is possible in Jesus. So let's jump in and hear what the Lord has to share today. Hi, guys. I am so excited to have you back on the podcast this week, and we are joined by a very special guest. Now, Riley does not know this, but she has been an inspiration to my life, and we will get into all those details. But it is, of course, Riley Sewell. Well, actually, Riley, what is your married
It
name?
is now Riley Kehoe.
Woo!
I got a new last name.
Amen. You may know her as Riley with courage, and if you don't know her at all, you are going to be royally blessed by this conversation. So
Oh,
before we start, Riley, what is your high and low of today?
I love this. Well, I'm coming to you from California and it's morning time here. But my high has been I just did a workout, a HIIT workout. It was incredible. And so I feel like the adrenaline pumping through my body right now.
Love it.
And then my low was I woke up and was, like, a little sleepy, but I was at Bible study last night, and one of the girls said that your decisions of your life, you need to measure them by your commitment, not your emotions. And I
Ooh.
so I remembered that, and so when I woke up this morning, I was like, "I'm measuring my decisions by my commitment. I'm waking up even though it's, like, 6 a.m. and I'm like, it's all cold outside," but I did it. I woke up,
That
spent time with Jesus.
that is so good. I mean, what a way to start. Oh my goodness. Um, oh, I love that that was kind of like a discouragement, but then it turned into a high. Like that's so
Yeah.
good. So
I
good.
mean, I do have a very positive personality, so I'm like
You you do, girl. You do. So this podcast is all about perseverance. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But I think what goes hand in hand with that is courage. And I mean, your
Mhm,
tagline is Riley with courage.
mhm.
So where on earth did that come from?
Oh, I love this question. Yeah, and I truly do believe, like, perseverance and courage, like, they need each other. You need more courage to persevere, and you need more perseverance to have courage, like,
Yeah.
they both interlock. Um, so courage has been this just mantra of my life that it's the thing I wanted to become the most. And it started when I was 10 years old and I survived a tsunami. And after surviving a tsunami, I was terrified of the ocean. And my dad said to me, 6 months after surviving the tsunami, my parents saw my sisters and I all terrified of the ocean, um, dealing with PTSD, and my dad and mom enrolled me in beach lifeguard training. In other words,
Wow.
like facing your fears every single day in training. And on the first day of training, my dad said to me, Riley, like, you're in this battle. I'm 10 years old. My dad comes down on his knees and like looks me in the eye and is like, Riley, you're in a battle between courage and fear, and all you need is a little more courage.
Wow.
And that was just one of those moments that I feel like those words, like, they etch something into my heart. And I have just the more I've read the Bible, the more I've gotten to know who Jesus is, the more that I look up at people that I'm inspired by, I see that courage is this theme. Like when I was doing my master's program, I did my master's in global leadership in Los Angeles. So I grew up
Wow.
in New Zealand and then I moved to LA to do my master's. And I did this study at the end, it was for my dissertation about healthy habits of global leaders. And I'm asking them all these questions about like, what does your morning routine look like? And, I'm
Mhm.
interviewing like CEOs of massive companies and like people who are in the middle of war zones or people who work really high up in the government.
Mhm.
And I noticed that the theme of so many of these habits was to create a life of courage. And
Wow.
so I've just been like collecting data all around me of why is courage so important and how can I become more courageous? But I
Mhm.
think even more importantly, like how can I help others to live more courageous?
That is so good. And like you've kind of alluded to it, But you were saying about like talking about healthy habits and collating information. I am a habit queen. Like I
I love
love
this.
talking about healthy habits and like how to do it well, how to not do it well.
Mm,
But actually somebody that really inspired me to do that was you. So to give you a little info, so I have been a Patreon of Tori and Chad Masters for 2, 3 years now. And the
so
first time
nice.
I saw you was via Tori's YouTube, even before like I was their patron. And you were talking about a singleness season. And that at that point, as far as I was aware, you were single. And I think you'd
Yeah,
come
it
out of
was.
like a messy breakup. And I just I think I was like 18, maybe 19. And I just
Mm,
thought, "Oh my gosh, that girl is who I wanna be." Like, she is just full of joy. She is enthusiastic. She is, like, rocking her singleness, which I know probably wasn't true, like, completely. You probably had your hard days as well. But I just remember watching that you and Tori talk about singleness and the joy that you carried, and I was like, "Who is she? I need to get to know her. What is she like?" And I remember praying to God, dangerously, may I add, but I prayed to God and I said, "God, if you want me to be ambassador as a single girl in her late 20s, make it happen." Now, whether, I look back and I think in part that was really flipping dangerous,
yeah.
because God listens to like our prayers and he listens to the things that we say. And he took it on board. Like, I'm 25, I'm still single,
Mm,
and I can just see now like God move and have conversations. But in the midst of that, he's
mm,
literally brought this conversation to be. So I
wow.
don't want to get emotional, but I just want to say thank you so much for leading the way for not just girls, but also guys to be encouraged and inspired that singleness is not a disease, it is not an identity crisis, but it is just a time to serve the Lord in abundance. Um, so I kind of prepped you up for the next question, but
Oh.
how would you encourage somebody who is feeling disheartened right now about their singleness?
Oh, well, before I answer that, Ellie, it is such a gift to hear that.
Mm.
And I mean, I was I was getting teary-eyed from hearing that.
Oh,
And it's such a gift to even meet you now, and
mhm.
just you're a very remarkable person,
Oh,
and
thank
your
you.
communication and like you're just it's clear that wisdom just oozes out of you. And so to people listening to this podcast, like they really have you're a person worth listening to. And so I'm really proud of your obedience to make this podcast. But singleness, I understand. Like I empathize with a person who feels disheartened.
Mhm.
And a little bit more about my story, is I was 28 and both my sisters got married before me. They're younger. In fact, I like officiated their wedding. Like I was the
Wow.
pastor at their wedding, leading them into this incredible covenant.
That's so good.
And I just remember feeling, like, so much joy that my siblings, like, met their person, and then at the same time going home that night being like, "Lord, what about me? Have you forgotten
Mm,
me? Like, where are you in this?" And I just it is such a journey that our hearts are on when we want something, and that, like, it's a desire deep within our heart, a desire that, in fact, the Lord gave you. Like, he plants us and he gives us, like, these precious desires planted deep in our heart, and one of them might be marriage. Like, he that might be the thing you're desiring the most right now. And I also had gone on like 50 plus unsuccessful dates, had been friend zoned so many times, had been through 3 heartbreaks, and I was just like, "God, like, where are you in this?" And so I just understand because there's this word, it's called vicarious grief, and it is like when we grieve something we can't see. And that's sometimes what singleness feels like, is like you have this expectation of what you thought your life would be like, and that you thought, I thought I'd be married when I was 24, and here I am years after and I'm not married. And I'm
mhm,
like inside me, I'm grieving that part. And I just think that it is okay to feel that is part of just that's humanness. Like the
wow.
Lord created us with divinity and humanness. And like the humanness is like the grieving, the thing that you really want and hasn't happened yet. And that is okay. And the Lord is close to the brokenhearted.
Yes.
And so I would just say, like, if only you knew what the Lord feels for you right now, and that the Lord
Mm,
is close to you right now, and He is not trying to rush you through it. He's not trying to be like, there's a Japanese psychologist, and he talks about how in the Western world we have this thing that is like this painful joy, like painful positivity, where we're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm great, like life is good, like I'm single, but it'll be fine. But at the same time, the Lord has given us this spiritual practice called lament, where
mhm,
you just stand before the Lord and you're like, Lord, this is how I truly feel. Like lament is, in other words, is like the most honest prayers, where you're like, God,
yeah,
I feel like you've abandoned me, that you've forgotten me, that you haven't fulfilled this. And
mhm,
and in lamenting, you realize that the Lord never left, that He's not
mm,
going to be angry at you, that He's not disappointed in you, that He hasn't forgotten you, but He has plans and purposes to prosper you. And
so
that
good.
He has a reason that you are where you are in your life right now.
Mhm.
And when we start to realize the heart of God for our singleness, I think that's when we start to shift it from grief to joy.
That is so good. Sometimes I'm like always trying to preempt the next question, and actually, in some moments, it's just so important to just sit and, as you
Yeah.
said, lament on what you said and lament on the wisdom. So, do you know what? I'm going to encourage those who are listening and those who are watching on YouTube. If you just need to like take a moment and process what Riley has
Yeah.
shared, please do, because it is wisdom of somebody that has gone through hard times and now has seen God answer prayer. But I'm sure, Riley, you have prayer in your life that hasn't been answered yet and maybe wasn't answered in the way that you expected. But you did say you got a husband. So how on earth did a girl who, and we will talk about this, but a girl who's like on fire for Jesus at the front of, the room, preaching, serving, giving the word, go from, okay, I'm comfortable in my singleness to hello and wedding and all the rest of it.
Ah, it's actually it's really interesting to look back on my life and realize my husband's name is Jack, and realize before Jack was start like had entered my life, I was at this point where I was so comfortable in my singleness. It was actually more uncomfortable to think about like marriage. Like, I
Mm,
just got to this place where I was just thriving. I was for sure there were nights where I was like gracious on myself to like feel the sadness and the grief. But like most of the time, I was just like, okay, because I had this conversation with the Lord 2 a.m. And he said, like, Riley, if you never like one of my favorite things to do in the entire world is preach. He was like, if you never preach, would I be enough? And I was like,
yeah,
yes. He's like,
yeah,
if you never wrote a book, would I be enough? And if you
yes.
never had kids, would I be enough? And then finally he said, if you never got married, would I be enough? And at this
Oh,
point, tears are running down my face. And I said, yes.
wow.
And I wore this ring on my finger, and it was just super simple silver ring just to remind myself, like I look down and be like, God is enough. And so it's interesting to look back and realize that to enter this journey with Jack actually required more courage than it took for the comfortability that I was now in singleness. Like
Mhm.
singleness, I was like, I'm comfortable. Like I don't even need to go on dates. Like I really enjoy my own company. And I had mentors and friends, and I was traveling and I was speaking. I was like, this is so fun. I like my life. But that was the thing, is I realized the Lord would be kind enough to bring somebody into my life that would be more vibrant and better for the kingdom than what my life looked like alone. And my theory in love is that like 1 + 1 = 3. And what I mean by that is like in singleness, you are bringing yourself to this place of wholeness and health and healing and like fulfillment of your dreams, and so is the other person. And but when you come together, you both make each other greater than what you were on your own.
Yeah.
And so it's like when Jack has entered my life, like I have truly become kinder. I've
Mhm.
become more prayerful. I have become more, like, disciplined, and there are things that Jack, his influence in my life has made me become more of,
Mhm.
and when I look back on past relationships, I think I remained the same, but I wasn't, like, iron sharpen iron kind of relationship where they were, like, encouraging me to become more.
Mhm.
Um, so that's just, like, a good measurement for the people out there that are dating, for
Mhm.
you to be like, "Okay, I'm dating this person right now. Can I see me becoming greater, like me
Mhm.
becoming more like Christ through dating this person." was single, I was thriving, and the cool part about our story is I was helping my friends lead revivals on the beaches of California, and
Okay.
it was these worship nights that we would just host. It was in the middle of COVID, churches were shut down here in California, and we were just like, "I wanna meet the presence of God and, like, let others meet his presence too."
Mhm.
And so we started hosting these nights, and, like, hundreds and thousands of people were showing up. Salvation, baptisms,
Wow.
deliverance, like, it was
Wow.
incredible. And this one night, this lady walks up to me and she goes, "Tonight's gonna be really important for your love story." And it was so funny. I just, like, heard her, but I kinda didn't real I was like, "Oh, whatever." Like, I was in ministry mode. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
focusing,
Mhm.
like, on what God has tonight, and I was, like, going from person to person to pray for them, and so I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, okay." Like, I just bookmarked it. And then
Mhm.
later that night, this little girl that's 10 years old, she was walking down the beach with her mom. She ends up coming to the worship night and jumps on me
Oh.
and starts crying.
Oh.
And she hugs me for 10 minutes straight, this little girl named
Yeah.
Natalie, and she says, "I feel God in you, I feel God in you." And it was just, like,
What?
this sweet, powerful moment, and after
Oh.
that hug, I led Natalie to the Lord, and now she's, like, an evangelist at her school. Um, and somebody I know, it's so great, and somebody had taken a photo of that moment and posted
Mm.
it online, and
Wow.
I posted it online, and I shared Natalie's story, and it was shared a few times, and somebody that saw that photo was Jack. And I think that's an important part of our story because if I think of the story of Ruth and Boaz, like here's the
Mhm.
story in the Bible, and Ruth is just tending to her field. The Lord has called her to a field to tend to the field,
Yeah.
and she's faithfully showing up to this field every
Mhm.
single day. She's
Mhm.
taking home extra grains to give to her, like, her deceased husband's mother-in-law, and, here she is just faithful in the field, and then Boaz sees Ruth in her field, and he,
Mhm.
like, feels drawn to her.
Wow.
And I just think for the woman out there, like, what is your field? And are you being faithful to it? And, like, are you using your field to bless others? Like, maybe your field right now is showing up to school to teach kids, or
Mm.
maybe it is being at youth group and volunteering, or whatever it is that you feel the Lord has purpose for the season in your life, be faithful to it because I
Mhm.
really believe that love finds you in your purpose. Um, and so, Jack saw this photo of me, he followed me, nothing happened. 6 months after, we have a mutual friend who wants to set us up, and
Okay.
I always said to people, like, "If you wanna set me up, please do," because I knew and I think that's such a good technique for people who are single, like, your friends know somebody you don't know, and maybe that person that they know, like, could be somebody you could date. And so Jack we got set up, Jack sends me he sends me a voice message, and this is my first ever contact to him, inviting me to be a plus one to a wedding in Mexico.
Oh, wow. That went from, like, 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah,
Oh my word. So did you go? Obviously.
I went. I was like, well, first of all, this is my first ever contact with him, so I'm like, can we FaceTime? Like, I don't even know what he looks like, if he's kind, what is he like? And so I FaceTime him and I on this FaceTime, I'm like, okay, this guy's really great. And the person that we had in a mutual friend, that
Mhm.
person is amazing. So I knew
Okay.
whoever he was setting me up with was great. And so then I call my parents and I'm like, guys, this guy invited me to a foreign country for a wedding, and it's 5 days that we're going away. And my parents are like, send it. This is gonna be either it's like something's gonna happen or it's just gonna be a fun adventure. Which
Wow.
shows something about my parents. My parents are very courageous. And so I go on this wedding with Jack as his date, and that week, you would think like, "Oh, it turned out great, we started dating straight away," but no. I ended up
Oh,
friend zoning him twice. I was so confused. I was like,
okay.
This guy is so healthy," and honestly, like, he was just so different personality-wise from guys I
Yeah.
dated in the past, and so
Yeah.
I wasn't, like, sure if this would be, like, a good personality fit. I didn't know if we had chemistry, and most of it, honestly, was my fear because I had
Mm.
this deep under it all, past all my thoughts, that what if this was it? And it was
Mm,
like one of those moments where you're actually not scared of failure, you're actually scared of success. And I was
mm.
like, I have liked my singleness. I don't know if I'm ready to leave my singleness and like start entering like a serious dating season, but the Lord was so kind because he put in Jack's heart like this determination to pursue me. And
Wow.
even though I friend zoned Jack twice, Jack still remained my friend, and he just,
Oh.
like, kept being my friend, kept showing up and encouraging me and FaceTiming me and praying with me, and it just, like, slowly my fear just started to just, like, loosen and loosen and loosen until I was like, "What am I doing? I
Mm.
need to say yes to dating this guy, like, this guy is wonderful." And flash forward, now we're married, and he is more wonderful than I could have guessed.
Oh, where to start with all of that? Oh my goodness. Like, can I just say, guys, we're not endorsing that every experience going to a wedding in Mexico will work, but
Not at all.
at the same time, that is like you could not coin that. That needs to be a film in itself. Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful. But I love the fact that you were very honest in the sense that, you said it wasn't a Hallmark movie. We came back and I friend zoned. Do you know? And actually those emotions are normal. Those emotions are valid. But what a blessing that he just primarily, said, I'm gonna be your friend and I'm going to show up for her and I'm going to be there. Obviously, I'm sure he was like, please, Jesus, please make it happen.
No, he was fasting every Tuesday.
What?
Relationship.
Oh, Lord,
Like,
bring me a
this
pastor.
man hears the
Wow.
voice of God, and that's why it's important in our
Wow.
singleness to learn to hear the voice of God so that in those moments, we
Hmm.
can hear God guiding us and giving us strategy so
Yeah.
that not just our plans work out, but God's plans work out.
Well, actually, let's jump on that bandwagon, as it were, because you've alluded to the fact that, you hear from God. And for maybe some of our listeners right now, they are in a place where they're like, I don't understand what these people mean. Like, how do you hear God? How do you see God in the Bible? So, how would you encourage people there to pursue that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say I loved how early you said, like, I prayed a dangerous prayer. And
Mm,
I would say, pray a dangerous prayer. Pray that the Lord would speak to you and pray that the Lord would show himself to you and watch him do it. Like,
yeah.
he he loves the prayers where he's like, where he hears his son or daughter being like, are you real, God? Would you
Mm,
show yourself that you're real and that you speak and that you still speak to this day? It's not just something you spoke in the times of the Bible, like you speak
yeah.
now. And he will, but just know that the way that the Lord speaks is not it's unique and there's multiple ways. He
Mm,
might speak through a prophetic word of somebody coming up to him being like, "Hey, God just wants to let you know he loves you." Or it might be through a feeling where you just sit
yeah.
down, you set an alarm for 15 minutes and you're like, "Lord, speak to me." And then all of a sudden you just feel this warmth and feel his presence.
Mm,
Or maybe read the word, like you open up the Bible and you haven't in months, and all of a
mm,
sudden a scripture speaks to you, and you're like,
mm.
that's exactly what I needed to hear in this time of my life. And so just pray dangerously and know that the Lord will speak in so many different ways. Like he doesn't just speak through an audible voice or a silent voice or a voice in our head. He also speaks through other people and in nature and through the word.
Yeah, yeah, that is so good. And so for some people, they may have tuned on and you've alluded to it, but they're like, oh, not another American Christian. Guys, she's not American. She's from New Zealand. Haha. So for those of us who don't live in America, how would you encourage male and female to listen to their calling and know that God may not always have you in the country that you currently live in?
Ooh, great question. Whoa, no one's ever asked me that. Jeez. Yeah, I believe that we can pray and ask the Lord to make things obvious. And sometimes we think he'll like communicate to us in like subtle, silent ways. But
Mhm.
I we have permission to pray, Lord, be obvious. What is my
Ooh.
calling? Do you want me to be in this country? Where are you asking me to be? where is obedience right now? Like, where physically am I meant to be obedient to you? And for me, like, here I am. This is 6 years ago. I'm living in New Zealand. I have a great job. New Zealand's like my homeland. It's my people.
Mhm.
And I kept feeling this like it was just this desire to do my master's. And I just started just like following my curiosity and thought, where do people go when they like the people that I look up to, where have they gone? And they have
Yeah.
happened to have gone to the seminary called Fuller Seminary in California. But I'm like, "Oh, would I mean, maybe they have online programs or maybe I'm meant to be there in person." And I just start going down this path unbeknown to me, like it set something like a fire in my heart where I'm like, "I want to go." And I can't shake this, like, if we silence our heart, there's like this feeling and we can't quite shake it. I just like
Mm.
knew I was called to America. And I remember sitting at the end of my bed being like, "Am I gonna go or am I not?" And my mom said to me, "Riley, choose the most courageous decision." And I was like, "Well, that's obvious, like, between staying in homeland and comfortability and the people I know and love versus,
Mhm.
like, up and moving to a country that I don't know anyone, to, like, driving on the other side of the road." I
Mhm.
mean, America versus New Zealand is a cultural shock. I mean, I just sent it. I hadn't even gotten into my master's program. They had actually rejected me,
Oh.
because they said I didn't have the prerequisites for this program. And the program was they had a prerequisite of 20 years full-time leadership experience, and I'm 22, like, I did not have that. But I just still felt like this is what I'm meant to do.
Mhm.
And so this is kind of crazy, but I felt like it was the right thing to do, and this might not be everybody's story, but if it is, like, just send it. I quit my job, packed my bags, and moved to
Wow.
America, despite not
Oh.
even having gotten into the master's program. And then I had been protesting for this program to change their mind because I thought, okay, if you're doing a master's in global leadership, you need young people in this program. Like you need to empower the next generation. And then I moved to America and a week later they had changed their mind and had accepted me. But I just love that the Lord guided my journey, that there was the faith to believe in the thing you could not yet see.
Yeah.
And also just know when you choose, if you feel that inclination and feel it in you, just know when you have the choice between staying in a country versus moving, in
Mhm.
terms of we're not human doings, we're human beings. And like we need to
Mm.
also focus our lives on what is the decision that's going to help me become more like Jesus? And what
That's so
is the
good.
decision that's going to shape me into a better version of myself? And when I saw these 2 pathways of staying in New Zealand versus moving to America, I also thought, I bet if I move to America, and I know loneliness, I know uncomfortability would be ahead of me, but I knew that that path would shape me no matter what happened, no matter if I didn't get into this master's program. I just knew that the Lord had me and that He would also shape me into a person that I'd be prouder of if I
Wow.
had stayed in the comfortability of my own home and
Mhm.
my own homeland.
Mhm.
And now that I look back, it is true. Like I just I I just am so glad that God took me here because I came here, I didn't know anyone. I went through loneliness, so much loneliness. I had to understand a new culture. There was so much I had to learn. It was overwhelming. I had to figure out my own home. I'm 22, but yet I look at who Riley is today and she's stronger because of that decision.
Mm. That is so good. Oh my goodness. We literally like don't even have the time to go into the nitty-gritties of everything today. So you will definitely have to I am booking you back, girl. I am booking you
Okay,
back for a
sounds
longer
great.
session. But let me think. So very quickly, you talked about the fact that you not weren't involved, but you were there when a tsunami hit. And so, what is the biggest learning curve that you learned from that experience about God?
Oh, oh wow. You asked such great questions. That was so good. Um, hmm, I think his mystery,
Mm,
because I'm in the process right now of writing my book about my life story, and this is something I reflected on one of the chapters, is you experience something like that where you know thousands of people died and you didn't,
yeah.
and can't help but think, "Why me? Like, why am I alive and those people aren't.
Mhm.
And you just have to know that there is just a mystery of the Lord, of his plans that we
Mhm.
will not understand until we start walking through the gates of heaven.
Mhm.
And I just have to be okay with that. This is another kind of random example, but I think about how I was dating this guy and I was like really convinced we were going to end up together. And then he up and broke up with me one day. And to this day, I don't know why. And I
Mm.
just know that there's parts of our lives where we just don't get closure. And we just have to just know that that is okay. It's like a little kid that doesn't know why they're getting in the car, but they just know that their parent is good and kind and loving. And we don't know where we're going yet, but I just know it'll ultimately take me somewhere good.
Yeah.
And now that I look back, like the tsunami, that traumatic experience has shaped me into a stronger person, but I still think there's parts that I'm still learning, and I won't always just knowing that the Lord had that we have questions for him and we won't always get the answer, but what we have to decide is that despite not having the answer, he is still good and he is still
So good.
loving and he
So
still
good.
is love and still has the best plans for our lives.
Mhm.
And so it's just like the trust that
Mm.
faith requires just to be like, I trust you, God. And so I feel like I've learned a lot about him, but I think I've learned so much more about my response to him and how
Mm.
he wants me to respond to him. And yeah, his character outshined his plans, and
Mhm.
his plans I don't yet know, but I will one day know. I just know that he's good.
I shared on my Instagram like a couple weeks ago, obedience is not what you get from God, it's who you get. And
Mhm.
just being able to like walk in that with certainty, as you say, even in the unanswered questions, you get
Mm,
to see, wow, God, like I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm active. And I think that's probably why I asked the question, what are your highs and lows? Because for every low that we have, there is always a high. There is always
yeah.
something to be thankful for. But sometimes it's somebody else asking you about it makes you really think, oh, wow, that really did happen. And that was awesome. So, Riley, you say you're a traveler, you like to travel. Where are the top three places you have traveled to in your life and people should go?
Oh, number 1, South Africa. I love South Africa. Um, 2 would be Italy. We just did a trip there, but Italy's, like, my favorite place in the world, especially the Amalfi Coast in Italy, and then 3 would be Thailand. I mean, Thailand is where I survived the tsunami, but Thailand is just it is a beautiful country with beautiful people.
That's so good. And my bucket list is New Zealand. I really want to go to New
You've
Zealand.
got to get there. You're gonna love it. The people are
Honestly,
amazing.
I'm like, Lord, before I die, please take me to the other
You
side
could
of
do
the
your
world.
honeymoon there.
I could. I could do that. That's a good suggestion. Neil, whoever you
Good.
are that marries me, we're going to New Zealand.
He's gonna be
Um,
a lucky man, that is for sure.
thank you. One last question. How can we as a church family, as a group of sisters, brothers in Christ, pray for you and Jack this week?
Oh, we would love prayer for well, so we're going I haven't made this public yet, so it's exciting that I get to talk about it here, but we're gonna go do missions for a year next year. Just go and
Okay.
volunteer and give our time. And so for this week, I would love prayer that the Lord continues to give us a vision and insight into what next year looks like.
So, guys, you heard it. Pray for missions, pray for your missions, pray for their missions, pray for it all. Whoever meets you, I can say will be royally blessed because I have in this, 45 minutes that we've chatted. So I'm just really appreciative of you, Riley. Thank you so much for coming on. Riley, would you pray for us as we finish today?
Yeah, Jesus, I just thank you for every single person that hears my voice. And Lord, I just ask for your presence to fall on people right now. I ask for just like the warmth of your love and your kindness. God, I just pray as people go throughout their week that they just see evidence of you all around them. That they just the people who hear us talk and we're decided to pray the dangerous prayers, that they just see you, God, evidence that you are real, that you speak all around them. I pray that God, that people would start to hear your voice more tangibly, that they would start to just know more about you and fall in love with you. And God, I just pray that for the people that listen that are single, God, I just pray that you would bless them just with an understanding of the gift that singleness is, but also with the gift knowing that you are always with us, that you adore us, and that you are close to the brokenhearted. So for the person that listens to this and they just feel like pain and ache in their heart, God, I pray that you would tend to them. You are the divine, like, therapist and the divine comforter and healer, that you would tend to the parts of their heart and bring comfort to them, Lord. That is what you've done my whole life. You have brought comfort to me. And so I pray, bless people with your comfort, Lord, and your love, Jesus, in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. So good, guys. So you know the drill. Until next time, keep smiling because your smile is so important. Spread love and not hate in 2023. And hey, have a bit of courage this week too. Bye, guys.